Hey friends, criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga here, and today I'm going to talk to you about Minnesota's new carjacking statute. So, if we've seen sort of across the nation right now, especially in bigger cities, there's an uptick in carjacking in a lot of metro areas, including but not limited to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And while the feds have been able to have an aggravated sentence for carjacking for quite some time, Minnesota statutes did not have a particular carjacking statute. Rather, Minnesota usually used the aggravated robbery statute. But as this uptick has gone on for a while, lawmakers and the Sentencing Commission here in Minnesota have tried to address that uptick with getting tougher on crime. And so they enacted this last summer of 2023 a new statute to address carjacking in Minnesota. And the statute number is 609.247 in the Minnesota statutes. And I'm going to read you a little bit about the new law on it, and then I'm going to talk about what it really means, okay? So carjacking is, it basically, you kind of know what that means, right? It's basically using a weapon or the threat of force in order to take a car from someone. But in the actual definition, it says taking a motor vehicle from a person or in the presence of another while having knowledge of, number one, not being entitled to have the vehicle itself. That's pretty self-explanatory, or using the vehicle without permission. And second, threatening the imminent, which means it's about to happen right now. That's what imminent means. Use of force against any person to overcome the person's resistance or powers of resistance to, or compel acquiescence, which means, okay, take it. That's what it means to acquiesce in the taking of a motor vehicle, all right? So a motor vehicle is more than just a car. It's an SUV. It can be a motorcycle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all right? All right, now we got different degrees of this. So basically, it's taking a vehicle without someone else's permission who's entitled to have the vehicle, and either by threatening the use of a force or actually by using the force to overcome their resistance or to make them agree to let you take it, all right? Now, we got 3 degrees of this thing. First degree, whoever, while committing a carjacking, is armed with a dangerous weapon, and that doesn't just have to be a gun. It can be a knife. Actually, in one case, I even had a hockey stick. Back in an aggravated robbery case, the court ruled that a hockey stick, as it was used in that situation, was a dangerous weapon. So it can be a bat, it can be a club, it can be a gun, it can be a knife, it could be a taser, it could be a whole lot of different things, right? Or any article used or fashioned in a manner to lead the victim to reasonably believe it is a dangerous weapon, or whoever inflicts bodily harm upon another one is guilty of a carjacking in the first degree, and then that's where the sentences get nasty. It's a max of 20 years in prison or a $35,000 fine or both. But get this, Minnesota's Sentencing Commission decided to make carjacking more serious than an aggravated robbery was, and it jacked it up to a level 9 severity level on our sentencing guidelines, all right? So we use sentencing guidelines in Minnesota, and it's a grid, right? The horizontal axis is your criminal history. The more criminal history points you have, the worse a sentence gets. And the vertical axis is the severity of a crime. So get this, an aggravated robbery is a level 8. So if someone uses force and a weapon or whatever and takes someone's wallet, even if it's got 10 grand in it, that's a level 8. But now carjacking, the Sentencing Commission jacked it up to a level 9, all right? So what that means is that if you take that, you're on par with a 3rd-degree murder, and you're looking at a 7+ year sentence with no criminal history, a presumptive prison commit for that, for taking a vehicle. That's just their way of responding to the carjackings that are going out there and making it really harsh. So that's a 1st degree. That's what you're looking at if you're found guilty or plead guilty to a 1st-degree carjacking under Minnesota's new law, all right? 2nd degree, not quite as serious. Whoever, while committing a carjacking, so far that's the same, implies by word or act possession of a dangerous weapon. Now, that doesn't mean you actually have a weapon. You're implying it. Maybe you lift your shirt and you're pretending you're brandishing a firearm, but you don't really have it, or you're pointing to your waist and you go like that with your hand, you know, like that. You don't really have a gun, but you're implying that you have a dangerous weapon. That's a 2nd-degree situation there. That's a max of 15 years and a $30,000 fine or both. And again, the presumptive sentence is a little lower for that. I think that's a level 8 right now under our law. And third degree, whoever commits a carjacking under any other circumstance, meaning not having a weapon or not implying that you have a dangerous weapon, is guilty of a carjacking in the third degree. So that might be you raise fists like that or something like that, or you got three guys and they intimidate someone and they jump in the car and do that. That's a max of 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine or both, and that's obviously going to be lower on our sentencing guidelines as well. All right. So what does this all mean? Well, you could, number one, if you're charged with carjacking, it could mean that the feds grab the case even if you're initially charged in state court. You got to be aware of that. The feds are getting really aggressive on carjacking, including in Minnesota, where there's been an uptick in that and where there's been prosecutorial messages that they're going to come hard on these things. So it could go federal even if you're initially charged in state. Second, if you stay in state court, obviously there's going to be some defenses to this. It just depends on the situation, right? Maybe you're falsely accused and you weren't at the scene. Maybe you were with some friends, you didn't know they were going to do that. They did it, and now you're being charged with aiding and abetting a carjacking or a conspiracy or something like that. And maybe you really didn't know that that's what was going to happen. So that may be a defense, all right? But other situations, it's not a situation of whether you're guilty or not, but maybe you were put up to it by some older people. Who knows what the situation is? And you can still seek a departure or a lower degree of carjacking, okay? So that's just the general outline of Minnesota's new carjacking statute. Again, it's 609, I want to say 247. That's our new law. That's the statute. Later next year, the Minnesota legislature could get involved more in the sentencing penalties on these and change some things. But right now, the Sentencing Commission has set what those severity levels are. If you have any questions about carjacking in state or federal court, I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga. You can find me at arrestedmn.com or give me a call at 612-339-5844. Take care.